I'm just going to answer a few things before I get into this. No, I wasn't drunk or high off drugs. Yes, I know that I shouldn't have done what I did. And yes, I'm very much aware that I partly had it coming for not learning to mind my own business and just kept on driving. I think the cops gave me enough of a lecture when they found me just outside the gate. Anyway, for those of you who want to know what happened, allow me to paint a mental picture for you. It's a long country road. And of course, you work the graveyard shift. Every time you've passed this one particular place, it's been sunny or cloudy, so you never really think about it. All you can see as you stop at the stop sign is massive foliage that acts like poles against either side of this worn-out looking gate. Still with me? Good. Now, picture months of passing this rusted gate, with the only thought in your head that it looks creepy enough to turn into a ghost story, but it doesn't affect you. Not really, anyway. The only thoughts you have is needing to get to work on time, and that the farmland that connects to this one gate is something that you wouldn't be caught dead going anywhere near, especially at night. A year passes, and someone dies by the very gate that you want no part of. Evidently, the person's death happened on a dark and stormy night, and you're grateful that it happened on your day off. This way, you don't have to see the corpse. To their credit, someone did put a large cross and a nice shrine to honor the person who died. However, it wasn't done right away. In fact, that shrine wasn't put up until 3 days after the event. You know this because you have to drive past this place on your way to work. It's the second day since the tragedy occurred by the gate, and it's pitch black outside. You reach the stop sign before you have to make that familiar turn into the next town so that you can arrive at work when suddenly, you notice something shining in your headlights. It's a German Shepherd. It's the eyes of the dog reflecting off the light from the headlights of your car. It's a pretty big dog, but something about it makes you uncomfortable. It stares at you. And in the dark, it looks more malicious than it probably was, but that's not what makes your blood feel cold. No. What does this to you is that it slowly paces behind the gate and it refuses to break eye contact with you. You realize that you need to drive, and it isn't until you start to leave that suddenly it leaves as well. For the next few weeks, I tried to keep an eye out for the dog, but I never saw it again. The gate was fixed, the tributing shrine was finally put up, but I still never saw the dog again. Eventually, I put the thoughts to the back of my mind and thought it had to be all in my head. Months went by, and then it happened. I drove to work that night with the thought of the gates thrown into the back of my mind. I kept thinking as I drove on that country road that had only 4 houses, 3 on one side and 1 on the other. I really wish I called off tonight. I could have used the extra sleep. 2 vehicles were by the stop sign. Because it was so dark, I couldn't see it well enough to get a description of the vehicles. A blonde-haired woman was talking to someone, and the gate looked like it was open wide enough to let anyone's car enter. I drove around them slowly, so as not to hit them. She looked visibly upset at something and kept pointing at the gate. My windows were rolled up to avoid the summer rain, and then I saw the dog again. It sat there by the gate and didn't move, only blinking when the rain hit its face. I drove to work, but when I went home, the red Jeep from the night before was still at the stop sign, but there was no driver. Not outside the vehicle or around the vehicle. Part of me wanted to get the cops involved, but I chose to drive on instead. After all, there wasn't anything they were going to do. How could they? I had to go back into town for the groceries that same day and saw that the car was still there and the gate was still open, but the German Shepherd wasn't. It made me want to investigate, but I didn't. I let a few weeks pass as fall was well on its way. Curiosity was getting the better of me, and I pulled over by what I guessed was a small power station. If I survive this, maybe I should check this out too, I said, joking to myself. I really wish I had just minded my own business. I wish that the second that I shut my car door and locked it, I would have realized that I was being stupid, got back in the car, and drove away. Obviously, I didn't. I slowly walked up to the open gate and looked around. It was then that I realized that there were 2 more crosses next to the shrine. No names or pictures. Just one big cross in the middle of 2 smaller crosses. Then I heard multiple screams come from behind me as time seemed to stop. As I began to walk past the gate, I kept thinking of how stupid I was for trespassing, and how I would be lucky if the dog didn't attack me as it thought I was a threat. The more that I pressed on, the more I felt something was wrong, and now the broken gate shut itself closed. It was so quiet, and I could hear my heart race inside my chest. Even my gulp seemed loud enough to be heard from miles away. Suddenly, I heard multiple screams come from this small, worn-down house. Some were begging for help. I ran to investigate and saw what was going on inside. People were on meat hooks, and others were chained to the floor. It was then when I saw the blonde-haired woman. She was tied down with her arms apart and on her knees. She begged for her life from the man that she was talking to on the warm, rainy night. She was suddenly disemboweled, and the German Shepherd ate her organs as they plopped to the ground. I immediately clasped my hands to my mouth to prevent myself from making a sound. I made the second mistake and immediately ran for it as my footsteps gave me away. Immediately, I could hear the man give his dog the command, and I kept running. The dog was catching up to me. My mind was filled with screams from so many different victims inside that farmhouse as tears fell down my eyes and the images burned permanently within my mind. I quickly realized that it was slowing me down, and I wasn't about to join them. There was a large opening under the gate, and I took my chance with it. As I rolled and slid under the gate, gunshots went off simultaneously. Rocks and various debris cut my skin as I made it out alive. I thought the dog would have followed me and tried to make a run for my car, but as I got up, the gate was open wide and broken. The dog was no longer there, and I didn't see or hear anything. Someone drove past me, and I jumped because of it. Immediately, I brought this up to the police, who were skeptical at first and lectured me about how reckless I was and how I was lucky that I wasn't getting arrested for trespassing. I didn't see a point in arguing with the cop and got into my truck. As I was about to back away, I heard the screams of Damned as the dog sat there and watched me pull off from where I was parked. As I drove home, I watched the dog in my rearview mirror simply walk back to the farmhouse and the gate shutting behind it. Every time I pass that gate, my mood immediately changes. It always feels compelling to stare at, but I'm reminded quickly of how I could have become another victim. I still drive to work at night, but I never tell anyone of how I walked foolishly into the gates of hell.